Hi, my name is Jenny Chamberlain, and I would like to welcome you to our very first Tea Time with Jen conversation series tonight. Now, I would like to encourage all of you to take this new link and share it on your Facebook pages. Tonight, we'll be talking about some really heartfelt, we'll have a really deep and heartfelt conversation that is going to address different things, our frustrations, our angers, our challenges, our sadness, our sense of loss, and our victories with all of you tonight. And you never know who in your Facebook network may need to hear what is being shared. You don't know, it might be your cousin, your brother, your best friend, or even a coworker or a classmate you haven't talked to in 20 years that might need to hear what our panelists are going to share tonight regarding the holidays during COVID. Now, some of you may be wondering, well, what's this? What's the Tea Time Jen all about? And some of you who know me well are probably thinking, how did Jen come up with this idea? So first of all, I want to acknowledge my fire survivors. Back in 2017, as you may all be aware, Sonoma County had our at that moment in the state of California the worst natural disaster in the state, and in that time, I met an amazing group of people who taught me a new definition of hope, who taught me what it means to see tomorrow, even though, or to even see the sunlight, even though the world may seem dark, who lost everything. And above that all, through some of the darkest moments of their lives, their hearts wanted to encourage others. Their hearts wanted to encourage each other and to encourage others. And they continue to do so 3 years later. So during our last fire in August, so many fires, um, or even in the 2019 Kincaid fire, they formed a team of volunteers that would go to every FEMA site or every town hall, and their whole desire was just to share information, but to let others know that there's hope, which brings us here tonight. Another part of it is the topic for tonight is household of one during the COVID holidays. So, as you all are experiencing since March, we've had some major impactful changes to our lives, changes that we didn't ask for, changes we didn't want, but we found ourselves acclimating to that. And during Thanksgiving, in the state of California, the governor set out some new guidelines saying that families of household of three, maximum of household of three, can gather together or should gather together for Thanksgiving. Well, I sat there listening to the news and hearing him say that, and I thought to myself, well, I'm a household of one. What does that mean for me? Does that mean that I need to stay home and cook my own turkey, my own pumpkin pie? Does that mean that I can consider myself a household with my mom and dad, but I don't live with them? And so I was really kind of lost for a second there. And as I began to share my thoughts with others across the country, and especially specifically with this panel, I realized that we all have the same thing in common. Now, you may be asking yourself, well, I'm not a household of one. I have children, I'm married, I have roommates. Do I belong here? Yes, you do. You do belong here. And everything and anything that our panelists will be sharing tonight, you will take away, you can relate to, and you can take away from. And hopefully we will definitely have more, but hopefully we won't have any more technical difficulties. But if this goes well and you all want more, we're going to give you more, because it's more important now than ever for us to have community, for us to not just maintain the community that we have, but to create new avenues for community. And that is one of our goals for tonight. So now I'm going to introduce, without further ado, I'm going to introduce our panelist for the night. This is a really amazing group of people that I've gotten to know either recently or down through the years. First of all, I would like to introduce Alma Hernandez. I met Alma a few years ago, and at a Hispanic Chamber Northern Region meeting. And for the longest time, I was basically the only woman who ever showed up to the meetings. And then here comes Alma and a friend of hers. I'm like, oh my God, thank God that there's another woman here, and I was so happy. And the gentlemen in the room, they're great. They're supportive, but we always need more women at the board table, I think, right, Alma? So Alma, before we move forward with the other introductions, as an icebreaker, because this is a new community network that we're building here, what is your favorite type of tea?
Oh, my favorite type of tea is actually the one I'm drinking right now. It is from Tivana and it's called Peach Tranquility. And it just has this really nice aroma and it's just real, it's a really nice kind of chill, relaxing type of tea. So it's one of my favorites.
Thank you, Alma. And you'll be hearing more from Alma tonight. She actually has, I'm not going to share it now because I'm going to let her share it, but something really interesting and awesome has happened since March in her life, which caused her to go beyond the barriers of what COVID sets for us and have a big win in that. The second person I'd like to introduce is David E. Barta. David, I know David because he's my brother's friend. And when I thought of this series, I immediately thought David Barta needs to be a part of this. Just because he's just a great person to talk to. And I want to choose people that everyone can relate to. And I think that David's someone that people can not only relate to, but David is a good relational person. He's a good relationship builder, in my opinion, David, at least. I can say he's a good listener.
Thanks, Jenny.
Yeah, you're welcome. And we're not looking for people who are celebrities. We're not looking for, we're looking for people who could be your neighbor or who could be your best friend, like David. So, David, what is your favorite cup of tea?
My favorite cup of tea would be English breakfast tea. And I used to really like the one in particular from Pete's Coffee, but sadly Pete's got acquired and they changed up their tea. So if anybody has any old bags of Pete's English breakfast tea out there, I want to buy them. Let me know.
No, Christine's the newest and the most recent person I met, but Christine, I feel like I've known you forever. Christine lives in the Bay Area, and I asked my sister-in-law, I'm looking for a young professional from the Bay Area who's willing to be vulnerable and share their life and not hold back about who they are, their authenticity, and their views on life. And she said, I have the perfect person for you. It's Christine. So Christine, I'd like to welcome you to tonight's panel. What's your favorite cup of tea?
Yeah, thank you for having me. My favorite cup of tea recently, I've really been into this Korean barley tea, and I like it hot or cold. So yeah, that would be my favorite.
Great, thank you for sharing. And last but not least, many of you who are viewing the show tonight may know this gentleman very well, Mr. Ramon Meraz. I know Ramon for many, many, many years, and I always tell, I miss your hugs. He's like the best hug giver in the whole world. But Ramon, if I share more about Ramon, I'm just going to spill the beans, and I think it's about who he is and what he's doing in life. I think that's something he should share. But Ramon, I see you drinking a cup of tea. What cup of tea are you drinking tonight?
My favorite cup of tea is the one in front of me. Whatever I have in front of me, I like it all. I like mint, chamomile. I like English breakfast with milk and sugar. I like orange pekoe with lemon. It's one way to get more liquids in me. So, I'll drink to that.
Thank you, Ramon. Thank you for sharing. Now, my favorite cup of tea, I am such a tea person. And when I was thinking about this, do I do coffee and conversations? Do I do conversation cafe? And I was talking to my friend Linda, and she's like, you need to do tea with Jen. So right now I am drinking, I love many teas. My favorite is actually Peach Tranquility with a 1 dose of honey. But at home, I'll drink various teas. Tonight I'm drinking English breakfast tea with some guava and lemon. And one of my favorite mugs, my friend, oh, you can't see it. My friend Nancy has given me this mug with the word live on it. And that's what I think tonight's going to be all about, us living life. So now we're going to begin our conversation. Um, as I mentioned before, many of us are going through COVID, and our lives have changed so much. And we've had to learn how to be flexible, how to readjust. And so I'm going to open it up to our panelists. What was your life before COVID? What was life like for you before this all happened?
Yeah, I mean, I think the one of the biggest, things looking back is just the hustle and bustle. A lot of moving. Whether it's moving around the workspace to and from work, just going to get lunch, errands. Yeah, just a lot of movement. My Apple Watch reminds me that I've been very lazy in these COVID times.
Yeah, I know for me, I went into 2020 with really high hopes. Like, started a workout regimen with a friend, like reactivated that rock climbing membership, bought gear for it, was looking forward to like finding a new, or actually got an offer for a new job, looking forward to visiting this new church. It was all these like revamping or new things to look forward to. So I think of like at the start of 2020 in January, entering it with really high hopes and very starry eyed.
I like that. Very starry-eyed, right? I
Yeah.
think a lot of us felt that. I know my birthday is a few days after New Year's, and I remember, I'm going to do all this. I'm going to write a blog and having these high hopes and wanting to travel. And bam, a few months later, here we go. Alma, how about you?
Yeah, so I uh, have a very busy lifestyle just because of the volunteer work or the community work that I do and just my job as well. So my pre-COVID life really was on the road a lot, actually, just spending time commuting to work. Sometimes it would take an hour and a half each way. I live in Solano County, which is 7 cities wide, and I would be working with different cities. And so I'd be going from one city to another. So a lot of drive time in between. Which got me really into podcasts, right? Because I was looking for ways to how do I fill in that space while I was in the car or commuting. And so, which is different now. You kind of have to be intentional about those things right now to create those spaces instead of where it would naturally fit in like a commute time. But yeah, it was just trying to be all over the place all at once and trying to, avoid traffic and try to be on time where you were going. So it's a little bit of pre-COVID time.
Pre-COVID times, right? Yeah, life. Alma and I, especially through the Chamber Network, having meetings in Sacramento, going to conferences in Los Angeles, and just keeping a busy life. And that's what we're used to, right? The grind. And when you first hear, oh, I'm going to start working from home. Whoa, this is going to be nice. I don't have to go through that hecticness. But then, of course, things change. Ramon, how about you? What was life like for you before COVID?
Well, I just moved to Kauai in December a year ago, and so this was time for me to create new networks, to create new social, groups, etc., etc. So it made it harder for me, before. But before this, I was just getting to know people on the island, and getting to know my job too. So I was supposed to be traveling to Boston to take a class, and to other islands to the trainings. So all of that had to change, or still happen, but in different ways.
Thank you for sharing. Now, a lot of us are talking about like transitions and work and whatnot. So let's talk about that for a second. What has it been like now that we are in COVID? First of all, let's talk about work. Like me, I was really looking forward to working from home, just slowing down. I think I had like networking events 3 or 4 times a week, and I thought, well, this is good, just for a little while. It's going to last for a little while. I can just kind of wind down a little bit. But of course, it's going on longer than that. So, how has your workspace and your work life changed? And can you share with us some of those thoughts?
Yeah, you know what? One of the hardest things about working from home is to have an end time at home. right? It's been so easy to work into midnight, 1 a.m. on various projects. Sometimes it's not just work, but like different work related projects, because there is no moving from one space, of office space into I got to get into my car to commute, and then also the winding down process. If you had a really stressful day at work, then you could have some type of mid time in there to kind of wind down from your headspace to transition into your home life, right? I just go to the kitchen. It's stress eat now. Like it's just very different. And so I'm curious to see, like, to hear from others what it's been like in, this, working from home for all of you.
Yeah, and something you said earlier, Alma, reminded me just about driving. My commute to work, thankfully, isn't super long, but I kind of forgot how much I actually miss driving. I don't know, maybe that's weird, but I actually really enjoy driving, or maybe it's because I'm from LA. But yeah, it's always nice to have that space to just kind of listen to the radio, music, podcasts, like you were saying, and how you have to just be a lot more intentional about creating that space.
So it seems, David, like your drive time was your personal space time. Even though you were in a car, you got caught up on reading material through podcasts or maybe catching up with friends on while you were driving. Well, you probably shouldn't be driving on your phone, but if you have the capability, your car does, it's okay.
Yeah.
And do you feel like you're missing that time right now?
Yeah, definitely. I think it is, sort of like a sanctuary or a sacred space. And a lot of times I would do public transit also. So it's just kind of nice to have that chill time, going to work to get ready and then coming back home to kind of decompress. So yeah, I definitely relate to like also what you're saying, Alma, about not having that transition time of like, okay, I'm like transitioning into work and now I'm transitioning out of work. It's like, when is work, when is life? There's not that boundary so much anymore, or you have to kind of be intentional about it. And I also just miss like, in terms of like workspace, just the random like conversations you would have with coworkers, bumping into them at, in the kitchen, the snack room, on your way inside, outside the office, or even like just running into random people on public transit, other friends, on their way to work or from work. Don't really have, or like old coworkers from a different job. You don't really have those random run-ins anymore. So I kind of miss that.
Yeah, I feel like that's the same for me too. It's mostly just the connection, whether it's with my coworkers or with the community. Because for me, my commute to work involved taking the bus and walking, so public transit. And I just really miss being able to see the same faces that would take the same bus route as me and getting to know some of them, or just walking through the neighborhood and the city or downtown Oakland to, be out and about in the community. So I miss that aspect of it. And exactly also like what Barta said, just the passing side conversation with coworkers is completely, gone now. But I do think like one way that been trying to like fabricate that, you have to be like much more intentional. So having to like now schedule or intentionally ask a coworker to like slot in virtual coffee with one another to try to have those more relationship building conversations. But even then it's like very curated. You have to like ask about it, slot it for a specific time. It's not just like in passing and organic anymore. So I really miss that element as well.
It's like our friendships are like in a museum now, like you said. It's like you literally have to curate it.
Yeah.
And I have an interesting layer that I work for a national company, so I have a lot of friends, coworkers who are on the East Coast, right? So I have all time zones. And so what you're saying, Christine, also resonates a lot with me, because it's has to be very intentional about what time we're going to meet up. And so it's interesting. Yeah, it's a good point.
Something I wanted to ask you, Ramon, if I may, about because your job is so unique in terms of like building connections and networks with a community that's also like a new community to you. So I was just curious, like how's that been in the transition to COVID times, and like how do you build like community in a new community? Ramon?
Ramon.
Oh no, you're to me. I'm so sorry.
I was like,
was
did your
thinking about
internet die?
that. It's funny. I thought we were talking to Alma. I'm so sorry. So
No.
yes, it has been. We talked about that on the before, but I have to meet with all my clients, and so we meet on the phone, we meet on Zoom, and then they come to the parking lot. So at the beginning, when the pandemic started, and we were overly cautious, I was wearing a mask and cover and gloves, and then I will bring them their medicine, the gum, their patches, whatever, to the parking lot, which I still do. I just now I would just wear my mask, and I mean, depends what it is. Mostly that's good enough, but it is a layer being added to the interpersonal communication, interpersonal relationship. So yes, we do have to be more intentional. I have to be more. I have a whole bunch of emoticons and emojis that I send people on text, because that's one of the ways that we communicate the most. So I have, the one from Facebook where you can make your own, avatar. I made a whole bunch of them so I can send different things like, hey, you're doing great, or tell me more, things like that. So I just have to be creative. But yeah, that's a very, very important part of my job, is the communication and the one-on-one. So I just have to keep doing it, keep trying different things. So yes, thank you for asking that.
Yeah, I find that for me, and I think anyone who I work with can say, I was like the social butterfly at work. I was the one that would talk to everybody, and I'm like, okay, I got to stop talking. I'm going to get them in trouble. And I miss that. I miss talking to people in person. And when we do our Zooms, our team checks in every morning. And I notice that the days that we don't do our Zooms, I miss my coworker community. I miss them through Zoom. But there's nothing like that in person, or just that hug or laughing together, right? Like you see something funny and you laugh together. You can't really see so much that's going on in Zoom, although with Zooms we have our laughing moments. I find myself talking on the phone more often, calling people. Have any of you experienced different things other than Zoom and text messages, that different ways have you connected with others?
I know for me, just today, actually this afternoon, some of also through Zoom, but some of us will get together every week for like a Zoom workout. So,
Oh, that's good.
that's definitely like a thing of the past in COVID, but still trying to motivate one another in community to still look after our just like health and fitness. So doing that once or a few times a week with friends has been very life-giving. Mm-hmm.
I would say it's predominantly been Zoom for me, but one of the things that I've taken that we do at work that I've taken into my own social networks when I'm meeting with friends on Zoom, or even when I meet with the board on Zoom, for example, is we start with a connections protocol, right? Which is everybody gets an opportunity to speak once. No, but there is no commentary, no feedback, or anything. And it's really how are you coming into this virtual space today, right? What's on top of mind for you? Because there are no other social cues around for me to know as you just logged in that someone was screaming in the background, right? Or your child can get onto the internet, or you're just dashing in between things. There's no cues there. And so it helps just provide that space. And what I've come to find both for my coworkers and my colleagues in community, that we've all experienced COVID differently. It's hit us differently depending on our lifestyle or what's going on with us personally. And it's actually provided an intentional space for people to voice something that they may have not had the space, prior. And I don't know if they would have done that in person sometimes. Like, it's something I was practicing in person, but I've been very grateful that it's transitioned into a virtual space that you can at least be intentional about just creating that space for people, especially when not everybody knows each other very well or knows, each other that way. How can you be intentional about creating space?
I think that's a super interesting point you bring up, Alma, because I think in some ways the Zoom format can maybe help certain people that are a little maybe like shy or less assertive about like talking, maybe make it easier for them. I know for me, like a lot of times I'm less nervous, or it's like on, this Zoom live, Facebook live we're doing right now, that, there could be like 5 people watching or 5,000 people watching, like, like I don't know at this moment how many people are watching. So that's probably better, because I'm like, I just feel like I'm talking to 4 other people, and I don't have to be as nervous about it. And so, it's potentially an interesting dynamic for some people with Zoom that, maybe makes it a little better in some ways.
Well, Zoom has also called us to expand our networks too, right?
Mm-hmm.
I know a lot of us, you're like, oh, when Zoom first came on, this is, I know a lot of us thought this is the most convenient way to have meetings. We're going to do meetings like this from now on, where we don't have to go to travel or drive 15, 20 minutes to an hour just to have a meeting. We can do Zooms. And then months later, right, everyone's like, oh, another Zoom, I'm zoomed out. And there's several angles we can go to this, but first, the first angle I want to see, has Zoomed increased your network? Was there an opportunity for that in any way? I see you're all thinking.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it's increased it in terms of like it wouldn't have happened with.
You know what? One thing last night.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Ramon.
He's on mute. You're on mute, Ramon.
Oh,
I think we lost him. Okay, well, go, Christine. We'll come back to Ramon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, there we go, Ramon.
So last night I attended a concert from a friend of mine. We've been friends since we were 5 years old, and he lives in Mexico City, and he's an entertainer. And I have not been able to attend maybe once or twice in my life. If I've been to Mexico City, then I've seen his shows. But last night I was able to do it because of Zoom. So that's something that we can do with our family. If they're in another state, they're in another country, that's something that can, as we get in more and more familiar, then I see that that's a plus. Yes.
That's
what were you gonna say?
Yeah, actually Ramon's sharing gave me another idea, a better idea. So I'm glad Ramon went first. But yeah, I don't know if Zoom per se enabled me to establish like what I couldn't in person. But I think one thing that was unique about it is I think about like weddings during the season and friends having weddings in different locations. And I remember in one day, and this wouldn't be possible without Zoom, where I was able to join one in NorCal and then afterwards in SoCal, right? In a pre-COVID world, I would have had to choose between either of the two, which would have been really hard. So I think that has been like a nice element to it in terms of like efficiency and productivity, being able to squeeze in more.
Yeah, you could be in 2 places at once finally.
Yeah. I've also used FaceTime. Going back to your question, Jenny, around other technology, like FaceTime on my phone with friends who have, we have the same platform that we can use and share FaceTime with. And it's been really interesting because going back to some of the other comments, there is no longer that opportunity to connect with people during the day, like coworkers, and I'm isolated at home, right? I don't regularly interact with anyone at home for the most part, right? And so it has to be intentional about seeking opportunities to connect with others in that sense, right? And so FaceTime has been one where it's like, my cousins, and it's like, hey, what are you guys doing right now? Let's just get on for no reason other than like cheese me, like, yo, what's going on? I want to know what's up. I want to know what's up, right? We have become TikTok, people where it's like these funny TikToks or funny memes that get shared through group chats that you're like, it's just these random funny things, but we all are seeing this one singular item through this technology, and then we're all having a reaction to it that is shared. And so and so it's been really really great that it because normally I'd be going out networking just like you
Yeah.
did, right? And
Yeah.
that was my norm. And so now it's like, how do you still connect with people? I will say the hard piece is like being on Zoom all the time or sitting down. Like like my face, like sometimes my back will hurt. I'm like, all right, you take my life. I'm gonna go get a drink in the kitchen. You're coming with me, right? And so
But yeah, I do think that is a really fascinating piece of this whole like, you know, COVID experiment or whatever you want to call this period. And I wonder if there's going to be like sociological studies on this. But I think the pandemic has really kind of shifted like what we consider like is appropriate for a webinar or, you know, like for video conferencing. Like, you know, I think in the past there's so many things like, you know, like a wedding, you would just say like, oh, like, you know, we can't do a video conference, like you just have to be there, otherwise you miss it. But now, you know, it's sort of like opened up this Pandora's box, if you will, of like you could do, you know, everything on video conference, and, you know, kind of breaking down those barriers of like what it takes for people to attend. And, you know, we see really innovative things like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, you know, on Among Us, like, you know, playing online, and some of these different, like not just Zoom, but other like games that have kind of started to create community and like these kind of novel ways to connect, you know, with people. And like for my work, we had our holiday party last week, which would have normally been like a big, you know, party at a restaurant. But obviously we couldn't do that this year. And so we use Zoom. We tried to use this cool app website you guys should check out called Gather. The website is gather.town, and it's basically like you're this little avatar on like a Legend of Zelda map, and then you're just like walking around, and then whenever you get near someone else, it like creates like a video conference session. So it's kind of a funny.
Cool.
And then you can like put items on the map or even like little mini games. So it's kind of funny. We ran into a lot of technical difficulties with a large group, so we ended up kind of punting on it and then redoing it like later on in smaller groups. But it's pretty fun.
David, what was that? I'm going to put that in the Facebook comments section. What type of app is it?
So it's just a website. It's the website is just gather.town.
Gather.town, TOWN?
Yeah, TOWN, gather.town.
And what does that do?
Yeah, so
It
it's just
connects
like,
you with people.
yeah, I mean, yeah, whoever else you share your link with, you create, you know, like a room, and then you're just like little characters on like a video game map, and then you can just like walk around, and it's supposed to simulate like you're only interacting with the people immediately around you. So kind of like being at a party, and then you just kind of start talking to whoever's near you, and, you know, the people that are further away can't hear your small group. So yeah, it's kind of funny.
Which is a great, oh, Christine, did you want to say something? Oh, that, which is a great segue, because I think this portion alone, we can just talk so much more about. But this is a great segue to the holidays, right? Thanksgiving. What was Thanksgiving like for you guys this year? And how different was it? I know during times of Thanksgiving, I think what I miss is dinners with my friends. I mean, I had Thanksgiving with my family, but I think all of us have experienced some sort of Friendsgiving, right? Or for those of you, I know I lived many years away from home. Thanksgiving with my friends was something I looked forward to, but I couldn't make Thanksgiving with my family that year. But never would I have imagined having a small Thanksgiving dinner, or even without extended family. How did you guys spend Thanksgiving this year?
Well, you know, I think that it was double whammy for me, because I had to join a health program where I'm eating vegan, and at the same time, I couldn't be with anybody. So if in a way, it kind of helped. You know, I had to change what I would have been eating. Instead of mashed potatoes and turkey, I had squash stuff with more squash. But it was a little sad in some ways, until I started doing some Zooms with some different parts of my family, and that was really a little bit nicer, and there was a little bit of what can I say? I don't know, just made me feel better. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And Ramon, you spent Thanksgiving alone. And well, basically you spent Thanksgiving with your dog Lentil and you Zoomed family. How did that
is
feel
correct.
though? I mean, you're sharing with us, what you did, but how did it feel being so far away from home?
Well, like I was trying to say, it was kind of sad in a way, double sad because I couldn't eat what I wanted to eat, but I couldn't be with the family. So it was a completely different Thanksgiving than I'm used to. But being able to, when I received the Zoom from my family, they were in Cabo and they were for a wedding that I was supposed to go to, and then it brightened my day. It made me feel a little better. And then I was with friends as well, and doing either FaceTime or just regular phone calls, and I started just getting on the phone and calling back, people, but then again, I know that we're doing this for a reason. So I mean, trying to stay within the guidelines and stay within the rules is important, and so that made me feel a little bit better about okay, you know what, we're doing what we're supposed to be doing. So we're not hanging out with other people, but that's for our own health.
Christine, I think you wanted to say something.
Yeah, just sharing that normally I would be driving down to SoCal to celebrate with my family. But by Thanksgiving time, even my family was saying like, actually, we all decided that it would be better for me to stay up here in Northern California. And by that time, my mom was even saying, if cases continue to rise, which they are, consider doing that even for Christmas. So both holidays away from family. Thanksgiving, I was alone initially. And I think like my first response was to try to be optimistic in terms of like I was telling myself, I observe or celebrate Thanksgiving on non-Thanksgiving day, where like, I eat with my friends or family, and in my heart, I'm thankful for them at that time. So telling myself not to be too sad about it, but I found myself like, in all honesty, really missing that time and that tradition with family and friends. And so that day was initially really hard for me. But thankfully, I had really thoughtful friends who like reached out, and it's really small, just like a couple for lunch, a couple for dinner, but didn't want me to spend it alone. And we just had a really low key dinner out in the backyard. And that was so life-giving again, and meant so much to me. And I'm so glad that they initiated doing that, which also showed me at the end of the night that like, yeah, I have to remember too to be intentional about doing that for others, because I was so blessed by it, and like it reminded me to look outward when I can, and to be able to do that for others too. So yeah.
Anyone else wants to share?
Yeah, I feel really lucky because I live in Oakland, but I grew up and my family's in LA, so I was able to drive down. Been staying with my parents, and so we still like our family still met, but we did like an outdoor thing. So each kind of pod of the family, we're sort of like seated apart. Thankfully, one of my sisters has a pretty big backyard, so we're able to do that safely. But I think the big part of it that was kind of different that I really missed was, like after you eat, just the kind of like hanging out and talking, or like watching a movie, or, watching football or whatever's on. And, is kind of more like a shorter format. Like we just ate outside, but then, it starts to get cold. So can't kind of have that like lingering time of just hanging out. Everyone kind of goes, back home their separate ways. So, I'm just thankful that I got to see my family, but yeah, definitely kind of a shorter format, and not quite the same. So looking forward to when we can just kind of be, share the same space for a longer period of time.
And how about you, Alma?
Yeah, I would say, oh man. So I have a lot of family in where I live. And so typically for us, it's like 30 people with all the kids, right? Like we usually have a little kids table. I someday maybe I'll be like a kindergarten teacher. But I love like the crafts and like doing stuff with all the children. I'm like the favorite. Oops, sorry.
Oh, hey.
Impromptu dance party.
I thought I was going to do a little dance there, Alma.
2 times. Sorry about that. But yeah, it was so. See, that's what I mean. Even like the vibes,
cool
I'm bringing
auntie.
them in. I bring the beat. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That's how it is. I love hanging out with my nieces, my nephews, and so that was a big piece that I missed personally, was spending time with these little ones, and you know, the aunts and the uncles and all that stuff. And so for us, it was very like every family did their own thing. You know, it was just my immediate family. We did all the safety checks as well, and it was just my immediate sibling. Well, my siblings and my parents. And it was what we did was we all got on FaceTime. Each family got on FaceTime at one point, and everybody was showing off what they cooked virtually, and we were like, man, we missed out. So there was a way to connect, but then you just felt the absence of all this extra laughter and joy and movement and dancing and just some good positive vibes that happen when you bring in people together into this gathering space. You know, it's all that synergy. And so and depending, you know, most of the time it's the not the one time you see them in the year, but sometimes it is. This is the one time you see someone who's traveled to see you, and none of that happened, of course, right? And so it's kind of you know, you have to find a way to not lose a little bit of the connection, but you feel it. You feel the absence and of it. You just do.
You know, and you know, with Christmas coming, Thanksgiving and Christmas, let's talk about traditions. And let's. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. The inability to celebrate or to practice certain traditions. You know, like for me, you know, like gathering all the women in your family to make tamales, right? Like, oh, I miss that. Or going to your tia's house, and my tia makes a really good lemon meringue pie, and I really wanted her to be there for Thanksgiving. And it just, we were tempted, we talked about it. And I think sometimes we talk about things in our heads, like, and then reality kicks in, right? Like, oh, she can't come. What were we talking about? But it was fun pretending that she could, or believing that she could. Um, do you, any of you have a sense of loss, whether it be traditions or anything else? Share your hearts with me. What was your heart at this year, or going into Christmas? As we go into Christmas, where's your heart at, or your thoughts, your mind?
I don't know. Oh, go ahead. Well, I don't know how it's been for everybody, but I mean, this whole thing has had its ups and downs. Especially when it's not just a sense of loss during the holidays, there's a sense of loss in all these other spaces as well, that it just accumulates, right? And you know, I don't know everybody else's journey, but I've had my own dips, and, you know, had to be very careful and mindful of like, checking with myself, do I feel depressed right now, right? Because this loss of motivation or loss of wanting to do stuff or things like that has been very real. And so I've had to be very, very careful and very mindful about paying attention to those things, because I have a few people that are close to me that see me almost, you know, on a regular basis, but sometimes not enough to be able to pick up on some stuff. And so because of that, that going into the holiday season, there is a sense of loss of what I would normally want to be doing, you know. And for me, I'm a very experienced person. I love sharing experiences with people. I can imagine myself, we'd be doing, I don't know, something fun in the past. We've made cookies, like a cookie party. You know, we made, you know, cookies for Christmas and decorated them, or things like that, with some of my friends, or things like that. And so there is a sense of being able to do stuff like that. And at the same time, you have to, kind of like what Ramon said, is like, you know, that we're currently in an isolated space because there is a reason, there's a purpose for that. So you keep that at the forefront. And then you have to find ways to keep it positive. So I just bought myself a gingerbread house to make, right?
Nice.
And it was just so, The final product was real sad. It looked nothing like the box. Nothing. But if you don't bring that creativity or that or find a way to stay connected to the season or stay connected to others, or then I fear that we'll miss out on it even more so, right? So I don't know. There's a little bit of there's a lot there, but there's a bit of here and there.
And that's what people need to hear, right? Right? Because there's things that we're overcoming and we're sharing that, but there's times where it's tough to find that motivation, just to even leave the house sometimes, right? And so I just want to spend some time and be real about where we're at in hopes that other people know that they're not the only ones who are experiencing these things with the ups and the downs. Who else would like to share their hearts?
No, I'm glad that we're talking about this. This is really important. I mean, the amount of depression and despair it keeps mounting, and as we get into longer and longer quarantines. But again, we're trying to find other ways, and we keep checking. We don't want to wait until last minute. Don't wait until you're really, really depressed and really down. As soon as you start feeling down, then it's time to check with whoever is in your bubble, is in your circle. I mean, that's so important. And then check with them too. I mean, how you doing? Are you feeling okay? And if they start talking about, hey, I'm feeling down because whatever, then it's time to, hey, at least just be more present. Make sure that they, I don't know whether it's a handmade gift or whatever you can do. Just show a little bit, sure that you care. We need to be united. We need to be connected right now.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I think, I really like what you said, Ramon, and especially that part about like kind of staying ahead of the curve of your, how you're feeling, your mood. I know just like from my own struggles with anxiety and depression, and also just like things that I've learned about it, when people do get depressed, you have a tendency to isolate yourself and kind of like, stop, like avoid interactions or stop reaching out. And, we're already so much more isolated than we normally are with COVID. So, definitely just want to like encourage like anyone out there, who's listening that, if you are feeling down or depressed, and, you just really gotta be a little more proactive than normal about, reaching out and just, you don't have to, it doesn't have to be this big thing, like, like telling someone I'm depressed. It could just be a simple thing like, hey, can we, do you have some time to talk? Or, could we do a Zoom or do like, an outdoor distant walk or whatever. Yeah. And then I think also too, just that thought of like having a short list of people that you're just kind of checking in with. And I feel like really fortunate, that there's a handful of people that check in with me too. And so, yeah, I think if we all just kind of have a short list of people, whether it's like once a week or even just once a month, just ping them like, hey, you good? How are you doing? How are things going? That can be really powerful.
Yeah, that really resonates with me too. And I think the initial, I don't know about the rest of you, but I feel like maybe the initial stall to answer that question is that like we're still processing that currently, as we're heading into Christmas and New Year's too. Like New Year's is usually huge celebrations, countdowns, reflecting on
this
the
is
year.
The year.
Yeah. 2020. But yeah, so I think just responding honestly in a place of processing still right now, but I think in the same way with like the rest of the year, I feel like the biggest thing I've been taking away and going into holidays is like sitting with my emotions in all honesty and like welcoming that if it is sadness or depression or frustration or whatnot. I'm not feeling guilty about that, but at the same time, even in social distancing, I felt like I hit a point during sheltering in place where it's very easy to almost just completely succumb to the isolation and defeat and just like throw your hands up and be like, okay, I'm going to completely self-isolate. But which, to be fair, like that's what we're encouraged to do. But really we do have some sense of agency even if it's just a little, and even if it's just creating approximate experiences, whether it's outdoors or virtual or whatnot, we have a little bit of agency. And I find myself in the beginning just completely letting go of all of that, because I just like heard shelter in place and that was like it, you know. But remembering when I had that epiphany, and really grasping that and seizing those opportunities, and during these holidays seizing those opportunities to have those virtual experiences, or to facilitate like holiday card exchanges or white elephant through mail or virtual experiences. Like, it's not gonna, you know, replicate what's in person, and it's approximate, but it's still better than nothing. And not letting go of those things. So I think that's what I'm heading into the holidays with, and trying to take up all those little opportunities.
Yeah, I really like that term. 2020 is the year of approximate experiences.
Yeah. It's better than nothing.
I'm gonna steal
Someone should
that.
put that on a billboard.
I think I definitely resonate with that too, because I think for me, maybe the idea of going to the holidays isn't so hard for me, because I feel like much earlier in the year I kind of had also my like breaking point of like, it's like I'm in Groundhog Day, like every day is just the same, and every day going forward is going to be the same too. So and so thank you, Jenny. It's really nice to have this panel. Like, this is been a really fun experience, like prepping for it and doing it now. Just like, oh, this is something different and new. Even if it's like Zoom, it's still cool. And like, I've met 2 new people that I didn't know before who are super cool. So it's just about kind of like you're seeing like finding the different ways. It's not going to be the same. It'll just be like an approximate experience, but what's like something I can do, that where I find my finding my agency. I think that's super powerful. Like, we all have to give up a lot, but we don't have to give up everything, and we can get creative about how we find that agency. I really like that.
And you guys all brought up some very good points. I know me, I think we had a group meeting, for those of you in our audience, last week, and we talked about just motivation, period, right? Like, when a friend calls and says, hey, can we do like a social distancing activity together? Can we have meal together? And you're just comfortable in your house. But the fact is that you've been in your house Groundhog Day every single day, and you're inside your house as you watch the seasons change. I know for me, when this whole started and I had the opportunity to work from home, I was like, I get to work from home. I had my whole kitchen table, my workspace, and every time I needed a break, I would just go wash dishes. I was cleaning. I was like a cleaning maniac, right? But then now I'm just like, I'm tired of cleaning. I'm like, I gotta wash my clothes now. I really don't want to. And how it's shifted, And let's talk about blurred lines at the same time. Going back to the Groundhog Day concept, what does our home space look like now that our home space and our workspace are one? Do you blur the lines? Do you find yourself working more than not, and being less social? Like when friends call you to say, hey, I need some time with you, and you're like, oh, let's just talk on the phone. Like for me, I watched The Crown almost twice, and another favorite of mine is Virgin River. Like, I watched that twice because I'm like, I love this movie, and it's out in the forest and it makes me feel like I'm somewhere else. I'm like, I gotta stop binge watching TV. I'm burnt out on this. What have been some blurred lines for you? And how do you create space? Ramon said Mandalorian. The movie Mandalorian. Have you been watched that, Ramon? So how are you? Oh no, well, not how are you? Let's rephrase that question. Are you able to keep that balance? Are you blurring lines? And do you recognize it?
Yeah, well, I know for me, my commute has definitely been, it used to be a 40-minute bus ride and a few steps, and now it's like 2 feet from my bed.
Traffic jam.
Like, I mean, my bed is like literally right behind me. So yeah, very real in terms of blurred lines. I could like hop on over to my bed and take a nap if I want to, and it's really tempting, but I think more than in my home space where it's been difficult, I think it has been more so what you were saying, Jenny, of like getting myself out, and like almost getting used to this sheltering in place, that sometimes I, even given the opportunity, like going on a walk and seizing while the sun is still out, I might just choose to forego that and stay in. And it's like, what? Like, why would I do that? But I think I've gotten to a point where every single time that I've like pushed myself to and like stretch beyond that, I've never regretted it. Like when I've been in an outdoor socially distanced like setting or hangout, like it reminds me that we were made for relationships and to be in community. And so from that, every single time, no matter how I feel, I always like make it intentional to just go, or make it intentional to like squeeze in a walk, even if it's just like 10-15 minutes around the block, because it does so much. Mm.
Mhm. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, that's really good, Christine, by the way, all of that. It's really for me, I was having problems feeling like I had reached the like productivity piece at the end of the day. Like, man, I did it. Like there wasn't anything to check off. There wasn't anything tangible to show. There was just right. It was really hard to gauge my own productivity in that sense, in just work and the community stuff and where it all kind of was, even though you're working all day, even though you were doing stuff all day long. um, I came across this. I came across two things that really has helped me through, and one of them was, The Power of Habit is a really great book out there. It's Atomic Habits, sorry, Atomic Habits.
Mm.
But it led me to someone on Instagram that I saw was doing this, and I was like, well, let me do it. And she kept these 5 habits every day, and it was to rise early, and dedicate that early time for yourself, something around mindfulness or wellness for yourself, to move 30 minutes a day. You could be dancing, you could be cycling, whatever it meant for you, right? Move 30 minutes a day, drink a lot of water, fuel yourself for energy. So good, healthier foods, and to practice gratitude. And it's a daily thing you could kind of monitor, and actually state those things you were grateful for at the end of the day, every day.
Mhm.
And it was really interesting because the day was just such a, like, I was like, what day is today? Right. I was losing track of my days. And so,
I know.
so
I still do
just,
that.
yeah, just this practice of top of the day, what day it was. Let's just start
Yeah.
the basics. Keeping it basic. What day it was, what I was grateful for, and my intention for the day. What was the one thing I wanted to, that could be work related or not, it's just what was my intention for myself for the day. And that kind of really helped me through. And the other thing was, I had to really rethink about what does work schedule look like for me. And I personally, I know I'm privileged that I could break my work schedule to do that. Not everybody has that opportunity depending on their type of work, but I decided to start doing something called time blocking, where I would dedicate 3 hours of the day just to work, and the next 2 to something more personal, or things that are, I just went back and forth, 3-3-3, right? Or 3-2 and 3-2. And it was, 3 hours of dedicated, deep focused time on the projects that I wanted to get off my plate. And the next 2 hours doing community work and volunteering or making phone calls. And this particular year, I ran a local campaign to run for city council, which I won. So now I'm a council member. Right. Right. But you had to be very, very meticulous, intentional with my time about where was I going to grab that energy from. And the way I did it is I channeled that for those 2 hours, that energy was going to be for others, making phone calls, following up with people, being out in community, or making appointments to meet people at that time, right? For socially distanced coffee or something, and then come back for the next 3 hours, another deep focus time for work, etc. And so for some reason that worked for me, because it felt like at first, at the beginning, it was just 12 hours a day of work time, and I was exhausted mentally, physically, and then not satisfied. I felt like I wasn't really done, right, for the day. And so this particularly helped me do that. And so I don't know, I worked with my team at work, and I said, I really need to try this if to help me navigate mentally, physically, and just how I'm working with balancing this work-life balance when I'm in the same space all day. And they went for it. They're like, all right, let's go and see. And it worked. So if anyone out there, just advocate for what you think you need right now to make your energy flow work for you, and figure that out with your team or your manager, and see what you can test pilot for yourself to kind of keep your energy up and going, because it's hard, especially for me. No one's dependent on me. So I would joke with my coworkers. I'd say, like, look, if I want to eat Cocoa Puffs tonight, I'm gonna eat Cocoa Puffs. And then I did. I didn't mean to, but I kept saying that so much, and then I bought Cocoa Puffs. And and what happened was, that's why that little nutrition stuff, I was like, well, I need to get back, because it's right. So
was that Atomic Habits by James Clear?
yes.
Yeah. I bought that book and I haven't read it yet. I should probably
I'll
read
put that
it.
in the Facebook chat. What was the book called?
Atomic Habits.
Yeah.
Atomic Habits.
Yeah. It's funny, that reminded me, really really good thoughts and advice, Alma. I'll have to maybe try the time blocking, but that reminded me, some friends of mine invited me to this other online game thing called Habitica, and it's like, I don't know if you guys have heard of it. It's a thing that's supposed to like gamify habits, so kind of similar idea to the Atomic Habits. It's like this video game, and you're like a character, and then you like create a checklist, that could be like just things for that day, or it could be things that repeat, once a day or once a week, and then you get like experience points and gold every time you check off a task, and then you can get like items and power-ups with the gold and the experience you get, and then you can have like a team of friends, and then you like fight a big boss. So yeah, that's habitica.com. So it's like habit and then ICA, habitica.com.
Okay, wait, say that one more time, David. What?
Yeah, habitica.com. So like habit and then ICA, habitica.com.
I've been on that with my friends as well. And it's like really small, like it's a really small thing in terms of going in there and gamifying it a bit, but it's interesting how much it can motivate you. I think again, it's the community element that it adds to it.
Right.
That makes it different from other like applications.
Yeah.
Oh, you haven't said anything. What's your bullet lines, and what do you?
It's different here because a lot of the work that I'm doing, when the pandemic started, I was actually getting capacitation. How do you say that? I was actually going to school, so I was supposed to go to Boston, but instead I was taking the classes online. I would get up at 3:00 in the morning, so I would go to the class in Boston at 7, whatever time it was there, 9:00. And so that was the first time that we were in lockdown. And then Kauai was so successful about keeping COVID away because of very strict guidelines at the beginning, that then we didn't have to do that as strongly as everybody's doing in other parts of the country right now. So my blur lines are not here right now. I mean, they are, but I do. I do a lot of telehealth, and that's part of what I'm learning. But that's part of the path that I was taking from the beginning. It just happened to happen when I was getting trained. So that's the way that I learned to do it. Now, when everything is better, then I'm gonna probably have to be retrained in the more face-to-face. So, so that's my blur line to you.
We're all gonna have to learn how to talk to people in person again.
Well, it's a good segue as we come to the last section of our conversation. David, you mentioned we're going to have to learn how to talk to people. And that's true. You know, we're gonna have to learn. Like for me, that I think the most difficult thing when COVID, I'm a hugger, you know, was not hugging people. I'm a toucher. I'm a feely touchy person. And am I gonna know how to hug again? I don't know. I probably will, but God, there's times where I just want to go reach out and hug somebody, right?
Mhm.
But let's talk about our authenticity. Um, and how COVID made us more authentic. I think, like for me, for example, don't know when was the last time I got my nails done, and I'm okay with it. Whereas before, I would go to all these public and networking events. I'm always like, I would do the shellac, the gel nails. I'm like, well, the gel nails last the longest. I you know, my birthday's coming up, and Nori, if you're watching, Nori's my hairstylist. Nori with Adore Hairstyling. I had made an appointment with her to get my hair done next week because my DMV license is due on my birthday, and I'm like, well, I'm gonna go get my hair done, then go get my DMV license right after. That's not gonna happen because
Mm.
this new in California, this new ordinance is not going to end till later in January. My birthday is January 3rd. Um, what are some things that you felt that COVID, I don't want to say made you more authentic because you're all are authentic people, but maybe embrace your authenticity more?
Mm.
Well, one thing I had in response to what Barda was saying earlier about like how we have to learn how to socialize again and interact with people. On I guess like the flip side too of that, I feel like because we've all had this same struggle and the same experience, at least on my end, and I hope on other people's end, I think there is a level of grace that people and understanding that people will have too. You know, that like if that first hangout is awkward, it's like it makes sense because we were sheltered in place for months, you know, we were conditioned to kind of forget. So I do hope like that to that authenticity piece that like there will be less pressure from people to feel like they have to be a version of themselves they were pre-pandemic because that's not possible. But like being able to come as yourself, and then also in that same respect, being able to welcome people for who they are post-pandemic. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I think we're all gonna emerge from this changed people, you know, in some way. And I know for me, like, yeah, I'm like pretty extroverted, and so you know, the shelter in place has definitely been hard in that regard. But I think even though like I'm definitely an extrovert by nature, I think there is a part of me that always kind of felt like I needed to like maintain that because that was just sort of like my identity. And if I don't keep that up, then like people like forget about me, or you know, or like I'll have like a lot of FOMO. So I think in a way it's kind of been nice to get like a break from being an extrovert, even though there's definitely sad parts about it. It's like, oh, like I can just kind of like chill and like have this more low-key existence, and like people still you know remember me, or you know, or even if like some people you do drift from, like, you know, it's okay, like friendships kind of like ebb and flow, and they don't always have to be like, you know, on it 100%. So yeah, I think like you're saying, Christine, just having that grace like for yourself and having it for others, like if others just need more time or distance, or you yourself need more time, more distance, like yeah, just like accepting that, and that's okay.
Yeah, I really I like both what David and Christine have said so far. That both of it resonates. This giving people grace, giving ourselves grace, and giving other people grace has been a big thing. I think this season, you know, I've watched my coworkers or friends, you know, they're in the middle of something and their child runs by and they're like, "I'm so sorry," and I'm like, "That's fine. They're cute. Bring them back," right? And so You know, one of my coworkers, her daughter's in the room so often, you know, that she'll come and she's like, I've missed you. And I'm like, oh my, this, you know, my coworker's in
Aw.
Ohio, right? And then we've built a relationship with her daughter online because her daughter does distance learning right now, right? And so she's there.
Yeah.
And so I think that that's part of it, is this sense of understanding and empathy for others of what the norms used to be. That's not right now. We all just got to do what we can to continue to move forward however we can, right? For me personally, while I was campaigning, I had this perception of people who can't, you know, like, you have to be polished, you have to be like, you know, hair's got to be done, nails got to be done, makeup's got to be done, you got to be suited up. And that took a lot of energy that I did not have. And so I showed up as myself. I showed up how I was for the moment in those spaces where I was trying to reach community, or I was walking, you know, in tennis shoes and, you know, my sweater. And it was, you know, dropping literature at their doors and meeting people sometimes at their front yard. And I'm like, this is who I am, and this is how I'm going to show up for you, because we're all just trying to move forward, and we're trying to build community. And in a space where we're feeling much more isolated, I think people want to know who you are as a person and what you're bringing to community, right? Who I was. They were interested in knowing who I was as a person. And so I think that was really important, to just provide ourselves a lot of grace and let go of some perceptions of what we thought, you know, the stereotype of what we have to be for others, when really it's like, no, people kind of just want to know who you are as a person today, and that you can understand them, and they can be that for you too, right? That you're providing a safe space for them to be vulnerable, to tell you they're showing up, and they or they're done with Zoom. It's a Zoom fatigue day for them, and yet they're still showing up for you because you have an appointment or a meeting, and you provide, all right, well, let's do a quick energizer. What can we do for each other, right? And so I think all of those pieces are important in regards to how we continue to show up, and and allow others to show up that way for us too.
Thank you for sharing. Thank you. Ramon, you have lentil with you.
Lentil.
When you were talking about kids, and this is my kid. And he shows up in a lot of Zoom meetings. Yeah. He even votes sometimes. Yeah.
um, as we near the end, I know one thing I just want to quickly touch base on is physical activity is so important to your overall well-being, and I find it difficult. Everyone's talking about the COVID pounds, you know, and Alma, you talked about being intentional. Um, really quickly, do you find yourself that you have to be intentional, or is that walks and whatnot, is that something you find increasingly more difficult to do because of the blurred lines and work? And like, I know for me, I'm like, I am a former Grubhub addict. I am in recovery from Grubhub because of my blurred lines. And not that my boss has ever made me say, Jen, you got to do all this work. I'm getting in my mode. I'm like, oh, if I stop now, I could do so much more. And then I'll just Grubhub it. There's no excuse. I work from home. I can cook. But when I look at my bank account and I'm like, oh, why am I broke? Grubhub, $20, $30, Grubhub. I'm like, oh, Grubhub. I gotta stop. But in the same token, I have to remind myself to exercise, because I did gain that COVID. I mean, I was on a weight loss goal before COVID, and now COVID I'm going to be straightforward here. It set me back a lot. Now I'm picking myself up to go back to whence I was, to restart my goals. How about you? I mean, and the winter's coming. So in the summer, you'd be like, oh, I'm going to take a walk. Now it's 5 o'clock and it's dark outside and cold.
Yeah.
Do you find that hard to make a priority for you these days?
Yeah, I think for me, especially like quarantine walks had been a huge thing for me. And then during daylight savings, it's just really hard after a work day. It's already getting dark, and you wonder about like safety and stuff. But I think one thing that really encouraged me was a few coworkers who what, like, basically as much as possible, don't compromise taking a 30-minute walk throughout their workday. So similar to what Alma was saying earlier about like a time block, for them it's like a 30-minute time block to squeeze in a walk while it's still light out. So I think having those time blocks, and then another big thing for me is just being able to do it in community. Like if it's, whether it's virtual with people and doing that together, or when we were more comfortable with outdoors, I would work out with a friend in her backyard once a week. So doing it with people has been motivating for me, because then it's not just like I have to like put my body through this pain, but it's like I get to spend time with people at the same time. So yeah.
Anyone else?
Yeah, yeah, so funny because I was actually like training for a half marathon with another friend that was supposed to happen in March, and it was kind of right on that line where like things were starting to shut down, but nothing was like official yet. And then like the half marathon ended up getting canceled, so I was like starting to get into really good shape, and then just like totally fell off. So huh?
You're like, forget it.
Yeah, just like ugh,
Right.
there's no point in trying anymore. So yeah, it's been really hard to get that momentum back, but just kind of been doing little things here and there, like a couple bike rides with friends or going on walks. But yeah, it's been really hard to, for me, I found that like signing up for an event is a good way to like force you to kind of get into a rhythm, because if you don't, like, you're gonna die on the event day. So yeah, if anyone has any recommendations on how to build that habit back, I'm all ears. Yeah, it's been
Well, there'll
hard.
be
It's been
another
hard.
one. We'll come back after COVID and we'll meet again and talk about how do you build habit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Alma and Ramon.
Yes, I was really lucky here to find a CrossFit that was actually given by a church. So they had different rules that other gyms didn't have. They had an outdoor shower that I could use, so I could go there and then go to work. And also they had an expansive area. They had a big gym indoors and an area outdoors. So it made it safe. And only like 4 or 5 of us at every class. Nice. So that was one thing that I was very lucky to keep doing. Plus, like I was saying earlier, I've been very scared about getting COVID and having diabetes, pre-diabetes. So I joined a program through Kaiser that is a diet and exercise. And every other week I meet with a group, with a class, with people that we're trying to get better health. And then the week after that, I meet one-on-one with my lifestyle coach, nutritionist /
And Alma.
Yeah, there's this virtual, it's an app, and it's called My Missions. And there it helps you kind of to stay motivated on some mission that you choose about how many miles you want to cover. And so I chose to cover 180 miles that you can complete by walking, running, swimming, bicycling, however you want to do that. And I started it like towards the beginning of COVID. And I'm almost done. It's taken all year, right? And so, but you average a mile, 2 miles, and you can see yourself move on this little, a little bit of gamification there. You can see yourself on this little map, and you can see where you're going, and you're logging your miles. And there's something there about, you can also tell when you haven't been, right? There's a moment I got stressed out and I stopped for 2 weeks, and then I'm like, man, I'm too, you could say, and it tells you you're 2 weeks behind. And so there's something there. But one of my favorite quotes, it's also by James Clear from Atomic Habits. He says, I'm going to paraphrase it a little bit. He says, you don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems. And that's why finding a way to create some type of system that could help me tell me where I was on a journey of just keeping 30 minutes of movement happening was really important to me, to figure out how to capture that when, in some way, shape, or form. And that's what I did. And we're all career professionals. And so our career, I don't know how it was for everybody, but for me, it was our entire organization organization had to switch gears on how to deliver services now in a COVID space. And so because of that, the projects, we're working, twice as hard to shift these projects really fast. And so, yeah, I work from home. Yeah, I could go cook myself a meal, but sometimes the mental energy just swipes you down, or you're in meetings back to back, that it's actually even hard to find those 30 minutes sometimes in between, when everybody's like, you could just go from meeting to meeting to meeting to meeting in Zoom, right? Because you're not going, traveling anywhere. So you have to be mindful. So I've tried to create those meal blocks as well on my calendar, so my people around me can know that that's space to disengage, to actually take care of yourself. And I that's the one thing I would want to emphasize for everybody is find space to take care of you. Like, you have to take care of you, so that you can be there for others. And so find what that means for you and how you can make it happen. And it could be incremental little positive changes, whether it's blocking a meal time or finding a new recipe or a little app that helps you stay motivated to actually go out and walk, right? So a little bit.
I think that's a great closing remark. I'm going to offer it to others. We actually went over our time, but there's so much to talk about, and perhaps we should have more of these conversations and break them down per topics. But in 2 or 3 sentences, any closing remarks or tips of encouragement do you like to give our audience tonight?
Stay positive and be careful.
Thank you.
Short and sweet. One thing I've been asking myself each week is like, what is something I look forward to this week? And if I can't name anything, then intentionally planting something in that week to look forward to, whether it's something as simple as like going to get my favorite dessert or taking a drive. So I think in that way, making it sustainable to hop from like something you're excited about to another thing you're excited about.
David?
Yeah, no, that's really well said, Christine. Yeah, I think kind of like we've been talking about throughout the discussion, just like finding creative ways to like stay connected, and whether that's like Zoom or trying to do a fun game thing. I know like Jackbox games was really popular at the beginning. I still need to play Among Us, so if anybody wants to play Among Us, let me know. But yeah, just trying to think of creative ways to connect with people, and just like reach out so you can stay connected, and then be available to others, who are looking for that connection. And or again, like what you said earlier, Christine, about like finding your agency, even though it seems like we don't have any, like you still have some, so don't let go of that fully.
And Alma?
And I would say honor who you are in this moment in time. Honor the fact that we've changed and things around us have changed, and just capture what this means and what little changes you might need to make to just kind of get into a positive, energetic space for what that means to you. And the other thing I would encourage everybody is to just find one thing that maybe you haven't done before that you're like, why not? Let me try something, a new craft, a new book, a new, something new for you that kind of energizes you and gets you into a new energy flow that's positive and keeps you uplifted. So just a little bit of that.
Thank you for sharing. And to our audience, thank you for joining us tonight. Again, once again, apologies for the technical difficulties, but I hope that you got some meat out of this. And for those of you who logged in earlier and may watch this video later on today or this week, I hope that you enjoyed this segment. I hope that you got something out of this. I hope that you know that you're not alone in this. And well, actually, let me rephrase that you're not the only one. And as we bear our truths and our authenticity, there we go, authenticity, I hope that you see that in yourself, who you are, your truth, your personal space. And I think one of the most things that I got out of this and working with this group this past week and even today is whenever you feel that you're in a crunch, because we all go through this. I'm not going to lie, I go through this too, where you're binge watching the TV, you're calling the Grubhub, or you just can't really you just don't have the desire to get out of your house because you're just really comfortable in your pajamas. Find that motivation deep down inside somewhere and call a friend. Even if you're only able to talk on the phone, have some good laughs or do a Zoom or text. Ramon talked about his emojis. We didn't get into this, but maybe we'll do another segment, folks, because I know some of the people on this panel, like for example, David had a career transition. Was it David? David had a career
Christine.
transition through COVID.
Yeah.
Christine, you got a new job and you quit your job to
Yeah.
get another new job during COVID.
Yeah.
Alma, you won city council and you joined the library board. And Ramon, you know, you changed your whole career from 22 years of a concierge to a health educator after so many years. And there's so much more to talk about. I can't believe we actually went overtime and now are out of time. But are you all wanting to come back again soon? And this time we'll get it right technically. I'll have David
Yeah.
Barda set everything up this time. David's
you know
a
a
self-proclaimed
lot more than I do.
tech nerd. So do you guys want to do this again?
Yeah.
Of
Yeah,
course.
let's do
And
it
thank
again.
you so much for organizing it, Jenny.
Yeah. Thank you, Jenny. This was a lot of fun and great to meet you, Alma.
And then-
Ramon.
Nice to meet you all.
Yeah.
And then
Aloha.
to our audience, I think let's just read a couple of comments here. Awesome. Thank you, everyone. It was eye-opening to see how COVID has affected and how you managed your wellness. Just so many great remarks. So we'll do this again. And to the audience out there, I'll do different segments as well. I'll do single parenting. I'll do how do you have a friend time during the times of COVID. I'll be turning 50 in January, so I will be I will be interviewed this time on January 3rd at 6 p.m. Tune in. That will be our next series. We'll be sharing my experience. I think I'm going to title it "Living My Worst Nightmare and Loving It," and so there'll be more to come.
Thanks.
But once again, to our audience, thank you for joining our segment, and we hope that you share this and I hope that you get something out of it tonight. Have a great night.
Thanks, guys.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you all. Bye.
Aloha.
Aloha. Mahalo.